All right, everyone. My good friend Carly Rae Jepsen and I are back at it again, talking about this time the War of 1812. This is the second video from the lecture. All right. So enter the British. How does the British Army come back to full strength? Well, they stopped fighting the French. So it's easier to fight the United States if you're not fighting the French at the same time. So they stopped fighting the French, and so those soldiers then transition over from fighting the French over to fighting the United States. These are all well-trained soldiers. Now, they might be tired because they've been in a war for a very long time against France, but way better trained than American soldiers. What was the British plan to end the war? Step one, take Boston. Okay. So invade New England and then also invade New Orleans and kind of like cut up America through the Mississippi. They also wanted to attack the Chesapeake Bay region for two reasons. One, privateers. That's where a lot of the pirates were. And two, to attack the U.S. Capitol because the Americans had burned down the British capital of York in Canada. So kind of retribution for that. So three-pronged attack New England, attack New Orleans to try and divvy up the United States, control the Mississippi if you take New Orleans. And three, attack the Chesapeake Bay region because of privateers and taking down the capital. Battle of Bladensburg, which you see on the map right here. All right. So the British soldiers come up the Anacostia River after getting going up the inner harbor, or not the inner harbor, the Chesapeake Bay, and so they landed Bladensburg to attack Washington, D.C. U.S. troops meet them and once again, U.S. troops are not prepared for this war. And the British start firing literally these like rockets. It's kind of like, they kind of sound like, fireworks. But these rockets start like flying over the U.S. Soldiers' heads into these woods, and just imagine fireworks going off everywhere. Well, it scares the hell out of the U.S. soldiers. So another name for the Battle of Bladensburg is actually the Bladensburg Races, because the United States militia that was set up there, they just hightail it out of there. They run. We're like, right, screw this. I got stuff literally bursting over my head. I'm out of here. This allows the British troops to gain entry, pretty much to waltz right into Washington, D.C. Okay, so what do Dolly Madison, Paul Jennings do? Well, Dolly Madison and Paul Jennings are there at the White House, and they realize that the British are coming, so they take like a bunch of key pictures and historical documents and save them. Paul Jennings cuts out the portrait of George Washington, takes that with him. Dolly Madison helps save some other relics as well. And there's other stories of other, people like taking, like the original copy of the Constitution and getting that out of the Library of Congress. So British, they literally burned down the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Dolly Madison, Paul Jennings, and others are the ones that kind of saved some of these important, historical relics that we still have today. Okay. Battle of Baltimore. Why does the British want to attack Baltimore? Privateers. Okay. There were a host of merchants coming out of Baltimore coming out of Havre de Grace, coming out of St. Michael's, okay, in Talbot County, that were they're the ones that were harassing the British Navy the most, and the British knew where they were, and so they wanted to take their revenge. After, you know, fine, we got the Capitol in D.C., we burnt that down. Now we're coming from Baltimore. All right. How do the British attack Baltimore? So they're gonna bomb the city, bombard the city from the harbor, and they actually drop troops off and try and come up. It's called the Battle of North Point. So if you ever take 695 east, you know, like around the Dundalk region, you'll see a sign for the Battle of North Point. So that's where they landed their troops, in that area. Fort McHenry is able to survive the bombardment. What citizens of Baltimore do? They scuttle a bunch of ships at the kind of like the outset of the harbor that prevent the British from getting too close to the city, because the ships like prevent like the big boats, the big naval ships from coming in. And so because of that, you know, that the British ships are able, or I'm sorry, Fort McHenry is able to prevent the Naval Academy, the British Navy, from getting too close to be able to bombard Fort McHenry. So they scuttle about 22 ships. All right. So they had to shoot from max distance, so they weren't as accurate. And what actually happens, one of the cannonballs hits the armory, where like all the where all the gunpowder is. But the cannonball thankfully was a dud. If it wasn't a dud, it would have blown up half of the fort. So a little bit of skill, a little bit of luck. All right. What is the defense of Fort McHenry? It's a poem written by Francis Scott Key. It is written during the battle or whatever. He's in one of the ships, you know, one of the because he's captured or whatever. And so the defense of Fort McHenry is what becomes the national anthem in 1931. All right, go O's. Later.